Welcome, 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 welcome. Nice to have you here. So let's just take a moment and get everybody into the room. And I invite you to join me in being here fully. Yeah, so finding your seat, getting comfortable, and just noticing what is alive right now in this moment. What's alive within you? And you can also notice if there's something here that needs to let go, that needs to release. And please, when we're seated here together, let us not sit and struggle. Let us sit and relax, be open and receptive. Open and receptive. Yes. I had this phrase that just kept coming to me today, almost like a chant. And if any of you have been to Catholic Mass before, there's this chant, where the priest, will hold up, I think, the bread or the wine and say in, a priestly tone, the mystery of faith. The mystery of faith. And of course, it's not just about how, Christ, how Christ was resurrected and the virgin birth and all these types of things. But the mystery of faith in our lives is the things that cannot be explained away by reason. The things in your life, the things on the path, the experiences that you have in this moment and previous moments that cannot be explained away. And every week I meet with all kinds of people, and I meet with this young fella from Israel, and he's a good friend of mine, great love for him. And, we have different kinds of minds and upbringings. He has the mind of a computer scientist. He's deeply spiritual, but he has the mind of a computer scientist, which is highly rational. That's a good thing if you're a computer scientist. And God never granted me that type of mind. And so anytime I bring something up that cannot be explained, he immediately starts trying to question it and find a rational explanation for how or why this is. And that's normal. Like, that's how the normal human mind works. But in this moment, if you have that type of mind, I invite you to put that down and just to join me in the mystery. And directly experiencing this mystery. One of the things that confused me really early on the path is a fairly rational or philosophical question of, if God is good, why do bad things happen to me? Why do they happen to me? Why do they happen to children? Why do they happen, to a mother or father? Why did my friend Butch get cancer and die? It's at a fairly young age. And so these are questions that our mind has. And when I was young, I really struggled with these. And it was funny, there was a transformation that took place, and it seemed that the more I suffered, the more angry I became at God about, why there's pain in this world. The more suffering I saw, the angrier I became at God. But then this transformation took place right about the time when I got very comfortable embracing my own pain, embracing suffering. And so this funny transformation happened. The more I embraced suffering, the more okay I became with the unanswerables. As the Buddha called them, the unanswerables, the unknowns. And it's not that I sorted anything out. It's not that I found the answer to these things. But somehow through beginning to embrace pain, this idea of fair and just righteousness began to fall away. And I noticed that, in moments of great sadness or pain or heartache, despair, it was just openness there. Openness. And so that's the question for each of us on the path. Is can we join in openness? Being open without reason. When it makes sense to run away from pain, to hide from pain, to ignore pain. But embracing the mystery, it requires that we open to everything we don't know, we don't understand. And in a sense, we give our mind a break. We give our mind a break. In a real sense, if we identify deeply with our egoic nature, in a sense, we become God. We have all the answers. We know it all. We have everything planned out. We think we are the doer. But at some point, God said, why don't you give that a break? Why don't you give that dance a break? Give yourself permission to retreat, to repent, to vacate your mind. To vacate it. To discover yourself somewhere else. Somewhere else. And so can you discover yourself here, now, in this moment? And join me in this mystery of not knowing and enjoying the freedom of not knowing what comes tomorrow, what comes next. And can you get comfortable with this freedom? For a lot of people, it's interesting. Freedom brings up great fear, which is kind of silly, but that's the nature of the mind. And mind wants to know everything. Have it all sorted out. And for some reason, it's absolutely terrified when it doesn't know. Which is bizarre. Like if any of us spend any time out at night, we just look at the sky. We have no idea what's out there. No idea. None. But when you open to it and you embrace it, it feels liberating. It feels so utterly expansive and quietly nurturing. This deep, dark, unknown type of way. this deep, dark, unknown type of way. And just a moment ago, I was out walking little Doodles and Buster, and there's a crescent moon right now, and there's a star or a planet pretty close to the moon. And if I had a scientific mind, I'd be able to tell you what planet it is. It's Jupiter, it's Saturn, it's whatever. But to be honest, that doesn't do anything for me. But to walk outside in the mystery, to see the crescent moon, to see it and to be the sky, to be the star, to be the one without a second. And if we want to step into any of this, we can't be out there thinking the whole time, saying, oh, there's Orion and there's, whatever. And there's Mars, and there's Saturn. And that can be fun, it can be fun to know the names of the stars and the constellations. But there's something that happens with your consciousness when you walk outside without a single thought. Without a single thought. It's quite a different way to live when you don't know. When you give yourself permission to be empty. To be empty. Empty and free. Empty and free. When you give yourself permission to step out of your egoic nature, thinking you're God, thinking you're the doer, and letting God be God, letting God do life. Letting God do life. Like, what is that like? To allow God to do your life. And I don't mean, not showing up for life, but letting go of the pushiness. The one who's always trying to control and manipulate. My God, that's a hell world, isn't it? To try to control everything, manipulate, plan everything out. I can't make a plan almost ever. Almost ever. And it always seems to fall apart as soon as I make a plan. In a funny way, I had a plan this weekend to go camping out to the desert. But my little girl got sick. And there was part of me that wanted to experience the oneness, the emptiness, the silence of the desert. But instead, I laid in bed with a sick little girl and felt the oneness, and the unity, and the silence. Holding her little hand in my hand. This was the mystery that God wanted me to experience. Is finding divinity. Finding freedom. In a moment of holding a little girl who's sick. And see, God has a plan for each of you, for you to find God in this moment and in every moment. Not just the moments of retreat or the moments of practice, but can you find God at the hospital while you're caretaking? while you're packing and mailing, doing business? Can you find God when you're walking on the Gold Coast, or the high school classroom, or in the, in the, when you're cutting down plants or trimming? Can you find God when you're laying alone in your room in Santa Fe, in the silence of the desert sky? Can you find God in suburban Georgia, or Pennsylvania, when you're attending to your kids or doing homework with them? Wherever you are, can you open to this mystery? Let this mystery come into your heart. Open your consciousness to a new way of living, a new way of being, where you're not in charge, where you're not controlling or manipulating or fighting or struggling. Can you let this mystery of faith lead you, move you? Experience through you. And when I was young, another question I sat with deeply was, what is enlightenment? What is it? I read so many books of all the great masters. I have one of them here. Any of you ever read this one? It's a big fat one. The Gospel of Sri Ramakrishna. J. Ramakrishna. It's a beautiful, beautiful story of Ramakrishna. I read the story of his student Vivekananda, the autobiography of the yogi. All these different great ones. And I read about all the Catholic Christian saints, Christian mystics. Francis, Padre Pio was a fun one. Sai Baba, Hamaji. To look on my bookshelf over here. Of course, Sri Aurobindo, all these great ones. And as a kid on the path, I always compared myself to them, and gosh, how does my life, how will my life be divine? My life is so different from theirs. Unfortunately, I had a teacher, and I had such an amazing life with my teacher. But then I would come home and just want to be at my teacher's house the whole time, on his land. And I started to have some big experiences of my own. And so at first I thought to be enlightened would be to be like Sri Ramakrishna, always going into samadhi. And at times, I do go into samadhi. But if that was enlightenment, that enlightenment has a beginning and an end. And the big awakenings I had with my teacher, with Adyashanti, I say, these experiences, these shifts of awareness, is what enlightenment is. And what I found is they just kept shifting. Sometimes it'd be really spacious, sometimes really blissful, sometimes you feel as if you are the ground of being, sometimes all of them. And God started to throw me some curveballs when God took all experience away. So that there was no experience ever. No experience. Didn't feel human, didn't feel divine. That there was only this, one without a second. An experience of non-experience, experience of being as big as the sky, as big as the earth, as solid, as empty, as light, as divine darkness, being a brilliance in hell, a brilliance in heaven, being an angel. My God, the experiences and the shifts, and the come and go, and this and that. All these different ways, and it's easy to hold on to one realm of divinity. Say, this is it. This is it. But then, of course, if we say this one thing is it, then what is everything else not it? And how could there be anything that's not God, that's not you? And sometimes it's just very simple. To be awake, to be enlightened, is to be the immediacy of this moment. To be all of this moment. The moon, the stars, the human, the not human, the me, the you, the sky, whatever, all of it. Today I was with my little girl and we were walking, two dogs, and walking across a bouncy bridge, across a river, and enlightenment in this moment was sun shining on my face, glistening on a river, yellow leaves falling down and dancing in the river. It's silly to try to name it, to try to make it static. It's a mistake I made for many years, is trying to make the hugeness of life, the hugeness of what is, into a static, describable thing, something you could say in a short pith phrase. This is what enlightenment is. Having no anxiety about being human. And all these experiences, they sound wonderful, but of course none of them can contain the truth. It's like you are indescribable, ineffable, uncontainable. What you are. What you are. And so do you know this? Do you experience this? Do you embrace the mystery? Or are you trying to take the mystery and sort it out and put it in a box and say, this thing, this is enlightenment, this is God, and this other thing is not? Unfortunately, that's what most spiritual people do, as they say. I am awake and the rest of the world is samsara. Is not samsara and nirvana one? One. How can there be anywhere where God is not? Where God is not? How can it be? So, anyways, are you open to your life being what it is? That this life that you live is God's life. God experiencing chronic fatigue, God experiencing COVID, God experiencing bliss or joy or happiness or silence or peace, God experiencing God in 1,000,001 different ways, ever changing, ever evolving. Are you open to this? Or do you just want God to be that which feels good? It's a normal, normal desire. Normal desire to want your spiritual path just to feel good all the time. But it's not how life works. It's not the truth. So are we in alignment with truth? Are we trying to force ourselves into some spiritual fantasy where we never suffer and never feel pain? Do we do violence to ourselves in the name of the spiritual path, trying to get rid of ourselves or destroy ourselves or kill ourselves, get rid of this ego? Now, many years ago, I learned, I cannot fight with this ego. I cannot fight with it. It just makes more and more ego. Well, what happens if you try to embrace the ego? Embrace the human. What happens then? Not seduced by it, but embrace it. But embrace it. So anyways, if anyone here has a question, I welcome questions. If anyone has something they want to share in the chat, you can tell about your experience of embracing the mystery. You can put it in the chat. If you have a question, you can put it in the chat. For those of you who don't know how to do the Zoom thing, if you click on the reactions button, you can raise your hand and we can speak if you want to speak. Or if you want to type something, you can type something. I do have a question that popped up here. This is from, I hope I don't say your name wrong, but it's Zishan. Zishan writes, I have a long question. I'll see if I can condense it. Someone was about to use their power over public funds in a corrupt way, a self-serving way. After failed attempts at a calm discussion, I shouted at them, and they stopped doing what they were doing. I was aware that I made them a bad object when they were confused and traumatized into attempting corruption. So basically the person, right, I'm aware that I, made them, into something that was bad. I felt guilty for having shouted at them as they looked hurt and fearful. And here's the fun part of the question. I love it when people say things that I once said. You, that's me, spoke previously about how you would defend your family with violence. Oh, wow. If you had to. And I wanted to get your perspective on how spirituality intersects with forcefulness and aggression. So this is beautiful. So this is one of the mysteries of faith that I'm speaking about, that we're inquiring into. Like, is God a giant bunny rabbit in the sky? Who would never do anything violent. And, we might have kind of biblical ideas, or I don't want to say childish, but childlike ideas that God is just this all-loving presence. And it is true, God is an all-loving presence. But God's love sometimes is greater than our human understanding, often is greater. One of the things that God has created is violence. God created violence. So how does spirituality intersect with forcefulness and aggression? Forcefulness and aggression is spiritual. It is God. I didn't create it, God created it. And so therefore it must be God, must be the will of God. The will of God. In some circumstances, in some cases, not always the will of God. Sometimes the will of God is peace. Sometimes the will of God is mercy. Sometimes it's kindness. Sometimes it's incredible love. But sometimes the will of God is to defeat Nazi Germany through a war of attrition. If that wasn't God's will, it wouldn't have happened. And so I'm not going to say, right or wrong in regards to violence. Let's say violence is, aggression is, forcefulness is. We live, Sishan, in a world that includes violence. That includes love. That includes peace, kindness. It's a part of life, a part of life. And so I wanted to point out, what you did. You asked your friend to stop doing this corrupt, self-serving action. And you asked them kindly in a calm way, and they didn't listen. And you shouted at them, and they changed their mind. They said, okay. And this is the kind of world we live in. Sometimes you have to shout to get someone's attention. Sometimes people have to shout at me to get my attention. Say, hey, you, get out of the street. Like I'm driving in my truck here. I want to hit you. Sometimes I yell at the dogs when they're in the street, so the truck doesn't run them over. So is aggression and forcefulness wrong in every moment? Of course not. Of course not. There's a time and a place for forcefulness. There's a time and a place for aggression. Now, hopefully, love, hopefully there's more of a time and a place for love than aggression, in your life. And what you find is there'll be times when God will move you to act forcefully. Like if someone harms your children, you should shout at them. You tell them, knock it off. You should go stand in the way between them and your children. Of course, we want to do this. So, to see who's coming in my room. Is that you, Ani? Do you need Daddy? Yeah. Okay, Daddy's teaching a class right now. Here, come here. Did you lose your mom? Should we go find her? Okay, let's go find her. I can't imagine where she went, huh? How you feeling? Not so good? Okay. Everybody, I'm going to ask for a little bit of patience here. So I'll be back in a minute. Okay. Sorry about that, everyone. I had to just take care of my little girl and help her find her mother. And so, yes, it's part of life. It's part of life. And there's ways, of course, we can embrace aggression skillfully. Like some of us in the Sangha, we study martial arts. And so we can get comfortable with skillful aggression. And some of us, study psychology, so we can get comfortable with, healthy but forceful, assertive speech. And these are higher manifestations of forcefulness or aggression. But of course, there's times in life for great peace. And then there's times to stand up in the street and fight and say no. Say no to what's happening. Sometimes we have to tear things down in order to build something new. And so if we have a spirituality that lacks, any sense of assertiveness, That doesn't include, kalima. It doesn't include intensity or forcefulness, aggression, death. Then it won't be a full spirituality. It won't be a full spirituality. And one of the things that I found on the path is, although I'm very happy to be peaceful and gentle and kind, pretty spacious and empty majority of the time, there's times when God uses me to confront someone. And sometimes God will use me and bring forth force. And yes, even aggression. And more throughout my life, as I've embraced the pairs of opposites, I found that they've imploded into each other. Imploded. So that there's not this division between this is divine or holy and this is worldly. For me, everything is spiritual. Everything is spiritual. How can it not be? How can anything be outside of the realm of God? How can anything? Now, if we look at an evolutionary development, type of model, view of life, then we can say, yeah, there's higher manifestations of divinity and lower manifestations. But sometimes, God has to use the lower to get to the higher. Sometimes God has to use the lower to get to the higher. And that's part of life as well. And so, my friend, I encourage you to look at what happened. You spoke in a forceful way. You might have hurt someone's feelings, but ultimately the truth prevailed. And on the spiritual path, we can't always be so concerned about hurting people's feelings. In a sense, to hurt someone's feelings is to offend someone's ego. And that's not the worst thing in the world, to offend someone's ego. I mean, some of the best lessons in life that I've experienced is when people have greatly offended my ego, because it makes me stop and look. Oh, am I being a fool here? Am I being an idiot? Am I being egotistical? Am I being arrogant? Am I being aloof? Am I being absent-minded? And sometimes people point that out to me in an offensive way, but it's actually quite beautiful because I learned something. Say, oh yeah, you are right. You're right. I was being foolish. Thank you for letting me know. Thank you for letting me know. I was being an idiot. I wasn't seeing clearly. I was only thinking of myself. And sometimes I needed someone to raise their voice so I could hear them. Other times I needed them to lower their voice so I could hear them. And so God uses all different ways, all different ways. So anyways, here's something from, I'll say one thing more is, with these questions of where does aggression, where does violence fit into the spiritual path, or, these unquestionable, these unanswerable things, you don't realize the truth until you live through it. Until you live through it. Sometimes you have to live through a violent altercation and learn to forgive the other, to forgive yourself, or see, the change that was necessary. To sit with it for 10 years before you realize these things. Sometimes it takes a decade for us, for the pairs of opposites, just one instance, the pairs of opposites fall away. Sometimes it takes a good decade of sitting with that. Here's what Terry wrote. I learned to embrace the mystery by watching just about anything David Lynch, any David Lynch movie. He never resolves or explains the strangeness or supernatural, or even refuses to tie up every plot point. Yeah, that's beautiful. I don't know if I know David Lynch. I don't know if I know his movies, but a good one that I'm watching right now is if anyone here has Apple TV, it's a show called Invasion, about the aliens coming to invade. I love anything alien related. But I've watched 5 episodes now, and it's like we have yet to see an alien. Maybe for like half of a second they flashed one on the screen. But it's great because just the show is just, they're just playing the theme of just walking you into the mystery. So there's something great that has happened to the earth, some kind of tragedy, but no one really knows what it is. No one understands what it is. And so it's 5 episodes in, and everyone's kind of just not sure what is happening. And I haven't seen a show like this before, where they do 5 episodes where you don't really know what the problem is, what's happening. And so it's kind of fun. Yeah. Taylor's given us the OA. I don't know what that is. Leftovers, 2 amazing shows about the mystery itself. Yeah. All right. I'll have to put them on my list. I love this, the mystery. This is why I love camping. I love being outside. I love living life. Living life. This is why God loves living life in the form of you. Because it's unknown. Absolutely unknown. Absolutely unknown. And moment by moment, the unknown reveals itself to you. Yet never fully. Well, sometimes kind of, sort of. Sometimes kind of, sort of. Anyways, okay. Let's hear from Robbie. Robbie, are you here?
Yeah, I'm here. How y'all
Robbie,
doing?
how you doing?
Doing okay. So I've been thinking a lot about yeah, it's kind of funny, from the movie Star Wars, Yoda, do or do not, there is no try. Do or do not, there is no try. And so I've been having a lot of trouble with like discipline and belief and faith on my journey.
Yeah.
And I was just wondering about that. Like, if I'm focusing, no, I'm going to try to do this instead of I'm going to do this. It's just like, if I'm going to try to do it, I already fail. Either
Yeah.
I'm going to do it or not. Like, there's no trying. It's either doing it or not doing it. So that's just something I've been thinking about that a lot, because just how things have been playing out for the last few years, just trying stuff instead of you know finally 100% doing. It's just, even though when you don't know what's going to happen, as you say.
That's right. Well, there's a power in what you're saying. There's a power in just doing what you're doing and not giving yourself permission to try. Because, and Robbie, like sometimes, like I know this, like with COVID and and having chronic illness and fatigue in my past, that when I'm under the influence, say, of fatigue or under the influence of illness, if I have language that says I'm going to try to do something, but my body's feeling fatigued, sometimes, an aspect of my ego, that feels victimized by the sickness, it gives up before it even starts, versus just saying, like, I'm going to do it, like you just said. And if I just say I'm going to do it, I tend just to do it. But sometimes when we have a part of our egoic nature which has been beaten down by life, if we give it the steering wheel and we tell it, hey, you just try to do this, it'll just drive us off the road real quick and say, I can't, I can't. And, if we step back and look at the one who's trying, a compassionate question is, like, what do you need? Like, what do you need? Like, sometimes we have an aspect of ego that's always sabotaging ourselves. And if we look at its needs, sometimes the need is it just needs to rest really deeply. And so it'll sabotage our behavior. Sometimes it needs some direction, and it's lost, and it needs someone to come forward and take the steering wheel out of its hands and say, hey, we're not trying anymore, we're just going to do. But of course, I can't answer that question for you. That's a question for you to feel into your own self and to ask, like, why is it I'm tripping over discipline? Is it because I'm inherently lazy? Like, I don't think you're lazy. When I feel into you, that doesn't seem like the truth. Is it that I'm under the illusion of fatigue? And, like, sometimes fatigue just paints, a picture for us of life, how life is, what we can and can't do. Sometimes, it's just a dance that we have to play out within ourselves, where we have to use a little will, or we have to use a lot of will just to get through it. What do you feel in yourself?
I don't think I've ever had faith.
Say that again.
I don't think I've ever had faith.
You never had faith, yeah. And so sometimes it's that. It's it's as simple as that. Is we don't know what faith is, and so it's starting to develop a relationship with that. Just even begin to question, like, what is faith? Like, do I believe that I will heal? Do I believe that life will get better? Do I believe that I'm on a spiritual path and this path is leading somewhere? And for many of us, God, one of the things that I get to do as a teacher, because I'm meet with so many people, I get to see these themes and, like, these dances that God plays in different people's lives. And so sometimes, when we have a question of faith, sometimes God piles on heartache for us as a way to teach us faith, because we have a choice. Like, when we have tremendous heartache or suffering in life, we have a choice to go with ego, which is like, life sucks, life is suffering, this will never end, I'm stuck, this will never change. To go with that, or to try something different. And just to try something different, that's the beginning of faith. To try another way. That's what faith is. And if you just notice, like, how it feels to have no faith, feels pretty rotten. It feels hopeless. It feels like you're just stuck, like a truck stuck in the mud. The tire's just spinning, like I'm going nowhere. But with faith, sometimes faith is just having a sense that I know there's a way out of this. There's got to be a way out of it. Having just a little bit of lightheartedness, despite what life has given you. And if you just notice, like even if God didn't exist and faith wasn't real, if you just look at the two choices of this will never change, like as soon as you believe that, your body feels like garbage. But if you just have a sense of maybe life will change, your vibration starts to feel a little bit lighter. And so even like if we played like a philosopher's game where it's like God exists, God doesn't exist. Let's just have some fun. Say God doesn't exist. If you just have a sense of hope that life will change and get better, you automatically begin to feel a little bit better. Whereas if you purely believe that life will never change, you automatically feel worse immediately. And so just purely from a place of being rational, all things, it just makes sense to hold on to a sense of hope. And I could say this is true from a psychological perspective. And of course, it's absolutely true from a spiritual perspective. You have any sense of hope that life will change. Like me, I'm going on 3 months and some change with COVID here, with long haul COVID. And it's not really getting any better. But if I hold it, if I just say it's never going to get better, I'm going to have this forever, I'm screwed, I'm going to feel like a bag of rocks. If I just have a general sense of, okay, a couple more months, I'll probably be feeling pretty bad, probably be feeling better, a little bit better. I start to smile. I start to smile and I feel light. I feel light in my being. And keep in mind, like COVID's not my first rodeo with pain. I've told most everyone this before, is that I have a head injury, so I live with chronic pain in my head. And, before I broke my skull, I had chronic back pain for, a good decade, and throw in some Epstein-Barr sickness in there and kundalini, craziness. I've been through the ringer with pain. But I notice if I don't have faith, I suffer greatly. If I just hold this very light belief, I don't even like the word belief, but just a sense of hope, the energy and the vibration of hope, that there's a chance, if I keep loving myself and doing what's wise, that I will heal, that I will awaken to something greater, that life will change and shift. And so I encourage you just to play with those in the next couple months, and just to notice when your mind is in the gutter, and see if you can pick it up out of the gutter and breathe in deeply a sense of hope. Yeah, please.
Hope. See, the thing is, hope seems contradictory to do or do not. Like when Luke Skywalker needs to use his mind to lift his X-wing, I think that's what it is, out of the water. He's not hoping to do it. He's doing it, or he's not going to do it.
Yeah.
So that's like what
Yes. So hope would be, just the beginning of acknowledging that I can do this. Like I can do it. So it's not hope like I hope it's going to be better one day. Like that's coming from like a place of emptiness or insecurity. But like true hope and true faith are energies that take, that basically do this. Like you're walking around with your head down, and when we have hope and faith, it's like our head comes up, our eyes get on the playing field. So instead of just like looking down at the dirt, hope and faith just gently raises you into the realm of possibility. I'm going to do this. And of course, you have to have faith it's possible if you think you're going to do it. And so I encourage you, just whatever it is for you, Robbie, just to say, I will do this. And see, now you're taking hope and faith and you're making it concrete. So you're using will. You're saying, I will do this. And to say it, and to even say it, deep in your belly, like, I will do this. I will do this. And just to notice how it feels. Sometimes it can be even a little bit frightening to say, I will do this, because there can be a part of ego that says, but what happens if I fail, or it'll be hard, or it'll be difficult. But when we're on the path of truth, it doesn't matter if it's hard or difficult. We walk forward. We walk forward. So anyways, I hope there was something there helpful for you, Robbie.
Awesome. Yeah.
Yeah. Anything else you want to share?
No, nobody was raising their hands. So I was just like, I've been thinking about stuff,
Yeah.
So why not?
Yeah. Well, it's good to have you, my friend. Good to have you. I will do. I will do. And so for some of us, the prayer is, thy will be done. But with you, Robbie, it's I will make this. I will make this happen. My will be done. Because your will and God's will are one. And God wants you to walk forward in the path. God wants you to walk forward in life. God wants you to step out of this fog and have discipline over your life. And so I encourage you to walk forward, my friend. Good to see you, Robbie. Yeah. Okay, let's hear from Kyle.
Hi, Craig.
Hi, Kyle.
So I'm wondering about, like, I struggle sometimes with a sense of, like, inauthentic personality, almost like
In others or yourself?
Say that again?
You said you struggle with inauthentic personality. And I asked, within you or within others?
In myself.
In yourself, okay. Give us an example.
Yeah, like, it's almost like I feel a little bit sometimes machine-like or calculated, and
like a robot?
A little bit robotic, yeah.
Okay. Are you smiling at all or not?
Yes, but, like, it's almost like that's also part of the character, in a sense.
What, to not smile?
No, to smile, and it doesn't feel like fully authentic because, like, my smiling muscles get tired and, like, twitch or something.
Okay.
Like, I feel like yeah, this isn't me. There's something in me that's saying, like, this is not fully my human character.
Okay. So why are you taking on a different human character than your own? Like, you can do that last Sunday, which was Halloween, but then the rest of the Sundays, it's like, why are we going to be someone other than who we are?
That's my question, because I feel like I'm that way at work.
Okay.
I'm like
Okay, so good. So just real quick. So with taking on different characters, different masks, if you ask yourself, like, why would I do that from a psychological perspective? Because this is a very common psychological veil, by the way. So why would my psychology put on a different mask instead of just being myself?
because I maybe have been convinced that I need to be like Mr. Teacher or something.
I've been convinced that I need to be like Mr. Teacher. So let's play a game here. If I am Mr. Teacher, what do I think I will experience?
A little bit like sort of sort of tight, like a little bit in a rush, and like needing to get through the lesson plan and the curriculum and get off to my next class, like that kind of stuff.
And if I get off to my next class, what will that do for me? You know, basically I'm asking, like, what does this character do for you? Because you're taking them on, like you're putting on this persona, this mask. And so what does it do for you? And everyone, you know, who's listening, you all can play along. You can look and see, like, do I have a mask? And what is my mask like? And why do I put it on? What does it do for me? Because it's important to get to know these masks. Let's see, like, what's it doing for me? Like, why am I wearing this? What are you afraid will happen if you just walk into the classroom, just be yourself?
That the lesson wouldn't go as well.
Yeah. I mean, I can tell you that when I was a young high school teacher for a brief moment in history, I walked into the class with no mask on, and the kids just saw me, you know, for who I was, and they laughed and they joked and they didn't take me seriously, and we just messed around like the whole time, and it was like it was a circus. You know, it was a circus. I didn't put the mask on because I didn't believe in the mask. You know, I didn't believe in Mr. Serious teacher guy, so I couldn't find that mask to put it on. And so, you know, I was kind of a lousy high school teacher, at least I thought I was. You know, later the kids told me they loved my class because they could just be themselves, and they thought that I actually saw them and heard them and listened to them. But as far as like the lesson plan, like, yeah, we didn't get very far with that, you know? And so, like, sometimes, Kyle, we put on a mask just because it's a role, and, you know, it's like, that's part of the job. You know, like one of my friends, he was a, you know, I'll say this because I don't want to get in trouble with YouTube. He used to grow green stuff. And then at some point he decided to become a sheriff. And I was like, gee, well, this is a big change here, man. You know, like going from growing the greens to being a sheriff. And, you know, like whenever I see him in his sheriff get up, it looks like a Halloween costume. And he puts on that role. He puts on the serious face, and he puts it on every morning. And, you know, he wears it for his 12-hour shift. And I'm like, okay, like that's part of his job, is to be that guy. But with you, you know, I encourage you, like, just to play around with, well, could I still be, you know, like a serious teacher just for the sake of getting the lesson plan done? Like, could I like hold on to just as much of that mask as I need to? But can I try to be myself much more fully, in a more relaxed way? So can you smile at the role? Can you smile at the robot? Can you know, breathe into it? Can you soften around it? Can you loosen it up a little bit? And I'm going to question you and ask, like, is there any fear associated with it?
Yes.
Okay, good. See, that's what I thought right in the beginning was, normally we put on a mask because we're afraid. Like, I'm afraid to be myself because, like, if I am myself, I'm afraid I'll be overwhelmed. I'm afraid that people won't like me. They won't respect me. They won't trust me. They won't love me. They won't like me, whatever it is. And so, do any of those resonate?
Yeah, I think part of it is a sense of unworthiness.
Okay.
Like that there's a certain, you know, teacher identity that I just feel deep, like that I don't fit that type of role. Like I've tried to in my past, and it just wore me out. I got burnout from trying to be Mr. Teacher. And so now I'm trying to be myself as much as possible, but also be Mr. Teacher, but not like just, you know, not consider my own energy.
Say that last part again. Not consider my own
energy.
Yeah. Yeah. And so if you want to be happy, be yourself and be the teacher character a little bit when you need to. Like sometimes we need to when we're disciplining a student, or when we're, given the lesson for the day or whatever. But then as soon as you're done with the lesson, can you let go of that? Can you let go of that and be the spaciousness, be the emptiness, and be the loving presence in the classroom? Not the know-it-all, whatever. The one who's always, given the lesson. And can you soften up? Like when you're a teacher, can you just soften and relax, breathe, feel your feet on the floor? Can you feel your belly? And can you notice, like, do I really need this role? Do I really need this mask? Even when I'm giving a lesson. And I challenge that. Like, do I need to put that on? Like, can I give this lesson from a place of peace, from a place of love, from a place of emptiness, and still care about the students? So these are interesting questions for you to play with. Could I be the light of Christ in the classroom and still teach? What do you teach? Social studies?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Economics right now.
Economics. Can I be the light of Christ and teach economics? Teach economics, I had a teacher, great teacher. He had such a profound effect on my life. Mac Van Allen was his name. He's probably the only high school teacher, only like educational teacher I can ever remember his name, remember their name. And he taught economics, social studies, these types of things. And I can see his presence, his aliveness, like he was his authentic self, fully. And he had the teacher archetype, so there's when we have a teacher archetype, we can let that archetype flow through us, and that has a lot less denseness and heaviness than when we're wearing a mask and we're being inauthentic. And so he was himself fully, and he was meant to teach. But boy, he didn't take on that role and that mask in a big way. And there was something about him that we all just deeply respected him because he was who he was. And so I encourage you just to play with it. Like just take that mask off more and more in the classroom and see what happens. See what happens. So tell me again, you feel that you're not worthy of what?
Well, when I look around and see the other teachers, like, it seems like they have so much of that, energy to, go the extra mile to write their lesson plans. And I find myself like that it drains me to go the extra mile to be Mr. Teacher, when it's like, for me, I want to spend that extra 15 minutes in like meditation or going for a walk rather than creating this perfect lesson plan.
Yeah. And so what if that's what your classroom was about, that your classroom had more space, more emptiness, more silence, more freedom, and the energy of carefreeness or looseness or relaxation? That's my classroom had a lot of that. Not so much book learning, but it's had a lot of experience. I used to take my kids, out of the classroom, take them on walks, take them down to the river, and I didn't care so much about I love this word, the rubric, the rubric. That's always been a silly word for me. But, I like not to pay attention to any of that and actually see them and see their divinity. See my divinity, see the divinity in the classroom itself. Just notice like what happens. What happens when we're this kind of teacher instead of the one who's real excited about explaining the difference between macro and microeconomics, whatever it is. Whatever it is. So anyways, don't compare yourself, Kyle, with any other teachers. I did the opposite. I looked around the other teachers. I thought they were all clowns, I thought they were all clowns. They were children in adult bodies. They're all clowns, just like me, just like me. So they believed in it though. Really, I didn't believe in it so much, So anyways, good to see you, Kyle. Thanks for sharing yourself with us. Yeah. One of the definitions of enlightenment, being yourself fully. Okay, let me just peek over here at Facebook land real quick. Are wisdom and mystery schools teaching a fool's errand? I have had incredible experiences while reading books like, I can't see that word. Is this just ego crawling around in the dark, collecting spiritual things and opening the heart? I'm really getting lost in this question. Is this the ego crawling around in the dark, collecting spiritual things and opening the heart? Is the turning the light on and beholding all? What's the point in reading? Laugh out loud. Yeah, it's so true. Many of us, we read and we read and we read and we, because I work with so many people with kundalini awakening, a lot of people have come to me who've studied the science of kundalini yoga, the science of mantras and pranayama and, asana practice and all these types of things. And at some point it can be just collecting more junk. The whole point, like Tyler is acknowledging, is to open your heart and experience directly. I can read a book, all night long about the moon, or I can go outside and experience its beauty right here, right now. For me, I don't want to read the book. I just want to experience the beauty right here, right now. Okay, here's one from Tate. Hi, Craig. What is your opinion on getting the jab? Oh boy. I hear you're not supposed to say that word on social media. I guess I just did. I hope the YouTube police are going to be mad at me. I've heard a lot of spiritual people say it's bad and the government conspiracy. I'm not sure. I personally got sick from the virus twice, so I know it's not all fake. Yeah, Tate. I try to stay out of this question. I mean, overall, if you look at your like the math, it's probably safer to get it than to not get it. But each person is different, and each person has their unique karma. Each person has, their own pre-existing conditions and this type of thing. And so, I think it's just a personal decision, my friend. I think this virus, I don't think this virus is just with us. It's just with us. It's everywhere. I was hearing a study the other day that said, 30% of the deer in Michigan have it. And then a couple months later, they said 60% of the deer in Iowa have it. And it's like, this thing is everywhere. And, people who get the jab, sometimes they end up in the hospital. Sometimes they have no reaction to it. Sometimes they have a big reaction to it. There's members of the Sangha that have gotten it and gotten really sick. And a lot of people have gotten it and got not sick at all. But please know, if you do get it, you will have a microchip in you, and Bill Gates will be controlling your brains. I'm sorry, I couldn't help myself. Listen, everyone needs to make their own decision about this. I'm not a doctor. do what's wise, do what's smart, take care of your body. And of course, one of the things too with vaccines is not only do you get them for yourself, you get them for others. You get them for others. And, as far as like how efficient this one is and the effectiveness of it, like, again, like, I'm not a doctor. I have heard every single argument possible about this thing. And, I have COVID right now. It's, long haul. It is a terrible thing to get. I wouldn't want to get it again. And so, just do what's wise for you. Do what's wise for your community. Be safe, be smart, take good care of your body. And beyond just, getting a shot, I encourage exercise and diet, being healthy and not, and taking good care of your body. Because that's one of the humble things about having a body is they get sick. Sometimes they get sick for a long time. And sometimes, we live with this mystery. Like, I'm a person who gets sick a lot. My wife never gets sick. Like, she got COVID alongside of me, didn't have a single symptom. Same with my little girl, not a single symptom. People are rushing to get their kids to get this shot, but I thought kids didn't really get sick from it. But again, like, I'm not a public health expert, so make your own decision. There is just so much emotion and so much politics around this whole thing. I'd like to stay out of it. And a big picture, if we go back to the mystery, this is one of the great questions in life right now. Like, what is this thing? And how long is it going to be here? What kind of effect is it going to have on me and my children and my parents, my community, my job, my career? And so there's the actual effect of the thing. But then there's this other effect that we've all had. People are killing each other over this thing, wanting to shoot each other, cancel each other, destroy families over who's gotten it and who hasn't gotten it. And it seems like, that there's a disease that's greater than the violence. And the disease right now is division about this thing. I encourage people to love each other, to be kind to each other, to respect each other, whether they've had whether they've had it or not. Whether they've had it or not. So, Tate, you make your own decision, do your research and make the best decision you can, my friend. Here's one from Conrad. I feel all the emotions and energy in my subtle body, solar plexus, heart, and throat. I'm afraid I'll never be able to release it, as it already causing problems to my physical body. Do I just continue sitting with the emotions or let go of trying to release them? So in theory, Conrad, if you're sitting with them, you're also letting go. You're not trying to be in control. You're not manipulating them. To sit with something is to have no agenda. To have no agenda. And sometimes if we're full of a lot of pain and emotion and it's not moving, sometimes the missing ingredient, almost always, is love. And so I'm going to invite you, my friend, to sit with love. And so, like, my little girl right now, she's sick. And so, I'll lay in bed with her and I'll hold her with love. But I'm not demanding that she gets better. I'm not saying you need to hurry up and heal. I'm not saying Daddy doesn't have time for this. We sit with her with love. And that's how she'll heal. When you sit with love, without an agenda, without pushiness, without forcing something, without trying to shove the medicine down, her throat. That's the whole thing with COVID. Everyone's trying to shove their politics down each other's throats. That's not how this thing will heal. We heal through love, through kindness, through space, through time, through embracing the mystery. Sometimes healing takes lifetimes. People don't like to hear that, but it's the truth. I'm still healing stuff from previous incarnations. Sometimes with love, sitting with something, sometimes we have to open our throat and scream. We have to scream. Sometimes we have to kick and shout. Conrad, I encourage you, if this has been going on for a long time and you're feeling stuck in it, sometimes we just need a little help. We need a brother or sister. We need someone on the path to hold space for us and show us how to open to this. So sometimes we need to meet with a good teacher or a counselor. Sometimes things won't release unless we get on a massage table. Sometimes they won't release unless we get on a massage table and someone's really, buttering us up or driving their elbow into us. And finally something in us just breaks and releases. And so I encourage you, try something new, my friend. And don't be afraid to reach out for some support. Go see a therapist, a counselor, someone who's trained in somatic healing, somatic releasing. Someone who's not afraid to feel, to experience what's within you. And so I welcome you all into the mystery of life. Much love to all of you. Thank you all for your patience when I was being a father for a minute there. So much love to each and every one of you. Good night, everyone. See you next time.